There are 5 things that's probably slowing your old school down. You've probably done motor swaps. You probably said, hey, I did this, I done that. I added some power. I'm still not getting what I'm looking for. I'm gonna tell you where to start. And these are the things you need to check. But number 1 is gonna be the easiest thing that's probably losing you some good power. God is everything. Without God, I'm nothing. So I can't promise you're gonna be able to see me the entire video, but I promise you the information you're gonna get is gonna be worth it. So the first thing I wanna tell you to check, and this is something very easy to check, is your spark plugs. Check your spark plugs and just make sure that they're burning correctly. If you're curious to if your spark plugs are burning correctly, you can always go to Google and type in, what should spark plugs look like when they're burning correctly. So that'll let you know if you're lean, if you're rich, whatever, and that could definitely affect your performance. And if you're lean, you might want to get it checked. If you're rich, you might want to get it checked. Too much fuel, too little fuel, they definitely both affect performance. But let's talk about what's also tied to, those spark plugs, your wires. Check these wires. I don't know if y'all can see, but I have little boots on mine to prevent the, to deter some of that heat from getting directly on them. That's a good idea in my opinion. A lot of guys say, oh, you don't need those, but like I said, it's definitely up to you. But make sure your wires aren't getting on those headers, and then make sure your distributor is good. Depending on what year, you could have 2 separate things. You could have a distributor and a coil, or you could have a HEI distributor where the coil is actually on top of the distributor itself. So verify what you have. I just say it like this: if you haven't ever replaced your distributor, I would just say just get a decent distributor. I got all of this stuff off Amazon. The distributor, the wires, plugs, the boots, everything came off Amazon. So I would definitely recommend just getting your stuff off Amazon, unless you have some sort of high horsepower build. I probably wouldn't do this which I probably need 2 separate things for the whole deal, considering I make some upgrades, but it works fine, no issues, starts up on the 1. And since we're talking about distributors, we're technically talking about timing. So let's talk about timing, right? So your HEI distributors sometimes have what's called timing advance. And your timing can definitely make a humongous difference in power. Once again, too much timing can definitely be bad. Too little timing, it probably won't run, or it's gonna run horribly. So I do wanna say, just, do your due diligence. Do everything you can to make sure your timing is on point. I would recommend getting a timing light. There are hundreds of thousands of videos on YouTube about timing and advancing timing and retarding timing and this type of stuff. Learn it and then go do your thing with it. So the next thing I want to tell you, it could be in your fuel system. If you have a mechanical pump, if you have an electric pump, doesn't matter. Just check out your wires. If you got electric, check your wires. I have a manual pump, so I would literally just be checking fuel lines, making sure there are no leaks, stuff like that. Because if you have too little fuel pressure, it still can run, but it's gonna run horribly. And when you step off in it, if it's not getting enough fuel, truth be told, it's not gonna perform as you want it to. And if it has too much fuel, it's gonna bog, it can't burn all that fuel. It's a domino effect. So check your fuel system, make sure everything is good within your tank, make sure all that stuff looks good. Filters and different stuff, make sure you got all those things in place. Since we're talking about fuel system, let's go ahead and talk about carburetors. Guys, carburetors are not a one-piece deal, right? You can't just say, oh, you got a 350, so you need a 650 carb. You can't just say, oh, you got a 383, so you need a 700 or you need a 750. It doesn't work like that. So I recommend always there's a formula for you to figure it out, depending on how many RPMs you're gonna turn, how many RPMs you're trying to turn, or how many RPMs you're gonna turn. All of these things can play a factor, because this is just a 350, and my engine, based off the specs, based off the RPMs I plan to turn, my truck will be fine with a 650 to a 750. I know some guys will probably argue me down that a 750 would be too much, but with the RPMs that I turn, I literally turn 6,000 plus, RPMs in this truck, and I know this 600 is too small. But let's keep it moving. That's That's your number 4 tip. Check your fuel system, check your carb, check your pump. Recommend having a gauge somewhere to see how much pressure. With these being old schools, sometimes, and I had this issue myself, so this is why I want to, let y'all know. Jack your vehicle up, and of course in the rear you have to put it in neutral. But just make sure you don't have brakes that's dragging. Like you want, when you let off the brake, you want it to be free. You want those brakes to be free. One of my front brakes was dragging, so I just bought two new calipers. It was dragging pretty good. It was to the point where I could spin it and it'll go turn it hard, when the other one would just, spin freely and stop on its own. So that definitely told me that that was something that needed to be replaced and it needed to be fixed. So everything else up to this point, I told you, was simple to check. This next thing is gonna be a bit more complex. It's gonna require a bit more work, but it is probably the most important thing. Your rear gear ratio. So back before I swapped gears in Ironman wouldn't even do a burnout. It would, but it was a reach. It was a hard reach, and I mean, I'm talking about like, once it started spinning, I'm like, okay, here we go, let's go. It was on that type of deal. It was horrible. It was a 350, basically the same as it is now, but it's different day and night. That rear gear will make your 383 feel like nothing. I had 256 gears. Now, depending on how you build that engine, the more power you need, the less gear you need. So it's a two-headed sword. So if you build a 383 with a bunch of power, nitrous, and this and that, I don't even know if I would still recommend a 256 even at that point. But look up what gear ratios your cars could possibly have. Some cars, it's as simple as looking at a tag on the transmission. I still recommend, especially when you got an old school, unless your dad or granddad or somebody had this car their whole life. If you bought this from somebody, I highly recommend draining that fluid, popping that thing off, and getting that ratio off of that ring and pinion. Get the ratio. Most of them, they're carved into it, or I don't want to say carved, but like printed into it. If not, all you gotta do is count the teeth and divide it by something. I can't remember the formula, but that's how I figured out that I had 256s. But while I'm working on rear end, I recommend checking your transmission, but you can feel your transmission. A transmission with a nice shift kit in it, it has a nice snappy shift. Sometimes it's almost unrecognizable. That's how Ironman shift. When before it was a drag, like you could drink a soda in between the shifts. Rear end and your trans should be checked. Let's move on to number 1, which is very, very simple. Very easy. I watched a video on this and it blew my mind. So for some people, I do understand that this may not be possible because of hood clearance things, right? So, and I want to show y'all this air cleaner, right? Some guys use the air cleaners, which the top plate doesn't matter. It's the bottom plate that matters. This bottom plate, some guys use the bottom plate that drops down, and I understand for most people it's just for hood clearances, right? But a lot of guys also aren't realizing that that bottom plate makes your air come in and has to go up over that hump to get to the carburetor. And according to the thing they did on Power Nation, more direct you can get that air into this carburetor, it makes more power. There were setups that were down. Man, there were setups. Hold on, guys. I'm just trying to put this back together. There were setups that was down. I think they started off at like 70 something horsepower. Now the engine they used was a big block, so of course everything was way more dramatic than it is for this. With this, it probably don't even matter much. Pretty sure it doesn't matter very much. If I can find this hole, y'all. Y'all probably thought I wasn't gonna find it. Y'all thought I wasn't gonna find it. Y'all sitting there, man, just take the top off, man. You ain't gonna be able to find that thing, man. Boom. Got it on. Guys, talk to me in the comment section. Have you ever had any of these issues, or have you had another issue that might have been similar to my issues, or not necessarily my issues, but my old issues that I had? Have you had anything similar? Do you have any of these issues? Now, I do want to say this. If you check all of this stuff, right? If you check your rear end, your spark plugs and everything of that, and you still say, man, this thing is still a turd, you might need to go to your engine builder, or you might need to build your engine. So anyway, man, appreciate y'all for tuning in, man. Anytime I learn something, I like to spread it. Y'all like the video. When you hit that like button, it's gonna give you an option to hype. Hit that hype feature. Doesn't cost you anything. All it does is say, hey, YouTube, this guy's making good content. I think he should be pushed out. Appreciate y'all, man. PullsTv, gone.